how are you doing? Good? This is interactive because you're all here by me. So my first question is, have you guys visited Slovakia Museum? No? Do you know where it is? Yeah, right by the airport, and I'm going to show you how close the airport is to it. It's very, very close, unfortunately. But basically, I have been there 8 years, and I took over from a gentleman called Roger Lidman, who did great work, and he was there for 30 years or so. So I haven't been there very long, oops. And we're still working on making a lot of changes. So I want to talk about what changes we've made since I've been there and how we're moving forward. Okay? And please feel free to ask questions whenever. If Leland can get this on again. So first, let's talk about, well, we are on an ancestral O'odham site, right? So been there since time immemorial. But I'm going to talk about the colonial history of the site, right? So in 1924, the person who owned the site donated it to the city of Phoenix. So it was a fledgling city of Phoenix, right? And they donated to the city. And the city was the first municipality in the nation to hire an archaeologist. And the archaeologist's work was to investigate the Vaki. Oh, thank you. The Vaki that is located on the site, and to build a museum. So they did that by 1929. And they called the site Pueblo Grande. That was named in the late 1800s, as a lot of the sites in the Salt River Valley and the Gila River Valley were named after, by Spanish terms, by the archaeologists. Okay. So the museum was created as a tourist attraction, an amenity for the Phoenix citizens, and was supposed to honor the original legacy of the original peoples. Now, keep in mind, this is 1924, 29, 1930. They didn't do a very good job, okay? But that's what the stated aims were. And this is a picture of the original museum that was built. It was built of adobe, and it was in bad shape in 1974. So they took the adobe down in 1974 and built the museum building that's there now. So that building is now 50 years old, right? Are you changing it for me? No, okay. It is making, okay. So, do we have a pointer? No, okay. So, you see that cluster of white up in the corner there? Those are the museum buildings. And you can see the Vaki is right beside it. So that was the original land that was donated, just that piece. Everything on this side belonged to the Tovri Cattle Company. They ran cattle over there, okay? And then on this side, they had, by the 60s, I believe, they had started putting in the infrastructure for houses. So like sewers and that kind of stuff on the west side. So this is looking north. So this is east, west, south. So the Salt River, before it was dammed, ran down here, literally down here, right? Which makes sense because the site is here and the canals were pulled from the Salt River. And here are the canal segments. You see these? Right. You can see too very clearly, they named this part of the site the Park of Four Waters. There's actually more there, but these you can see very clearly. So what happened over time is the city started buying up, because it was private land, right? So they started buying up sections to save as much of the site as they could, right? Unfortunately, the site did go across. This is Washington Street. It went another mile north, but that's all private now. It did go over to 48th Street and to 44th Street. Okay? So we only own this 100 acres, basically between 44th and the 143 freeway. the Salt River Bed, and Washington. So that's what the city of Phoenix currently owns. Okay? Museum is up in the top quadrant, and we are preserving the park of four waters. So I wanted to show this picture to show you how close the airport is. Okay, so this is the airport here, and if you're in the park of four waters, right, we're basically on the runway. And have you been out there, Leland? When you're out there and the planes are coming into land, it feels like they're landing on your head. It feels that close. I ducked the first time. They're not that close, but it feels that way. So we are basically enclosed by the city of Phoenix, right? They put the 143 freeway in the 80s, and they did do archaeology. And I don't know if Lorraine talked about that in her presentation, but there was a lot found there. So on the east side of our property, we're not doing anything because we do not want to disturb the archaeological resources that we know are there. So as I said, I came in about 8 years ago, so 2016, and the first thing I wanted to do was to find out what people thought about what we were doing. So I held 4 stakeholder meetings, one with our O'odham and Pee Posh community members, one with the archaeologists and avocational archaeologists, one with our volunteers and our support people, and then one with City of Phoenix management, right? So those 4 groups. And we held them separately, and we all talked, and what we got back was some of that. It's now disappeared. But basically, all the groups agreed on a lot of what we weren't doing, right? What we weren't doing correctly. So those were, since it's not on the screen for you, the accomplishments of the ancestors should be highlighted within an extended historical and ecological context. They felt that our story was not broad enough. The connection to living tribal communities should be brought into the exhibit spaces. Oh my gosh, I have to tell you, 60 to 70% of our visitors are from, not only from outside of the city, but a lot from outside of the state. We have all 50 states. We have about 5% from outside of the country. So people are walking in the door and know nothing. Nothing. So getting them to understand that you guys are a living community right here is very difficult when you're really only focusing on the past, right? So that came up very clearly. And then, of course, a feeling of respect, reverence, and connection to the site and through time needs to be cultivated. Okay? So I had all of this input, and the first thing that told me is that mission and vision for the museum was really old and needed to be updated because it didn't really reflect any of that. So we are run by the City of Phoenix, so I have to go through a process with the city management to do this. But we did this and we changed our mission and our vision, right? The other thing that we get from our visitors from all over the place is Phoenix. People don't think there's history in Phoenix because they're thinking colonial history, and so that's all back east, and there's nothing out here, right? So our job is to try to get them to understand this deep history here, and it really starts at a site like Sudovaki. So that's our vision. Our mission is to do the right thing, basically, and foster understanding, appreciation, and respect for our shared cultural history, right? So we changed that. Then my next challenge was, all right, we changed our mission, we changed our vision. How do I actually put that into the interpretation at the site, into our signs, into our text, into what are we saying? How do I do that? So the city supports us very well, but they really don't give us enough money to do a lot of that work. So I started writing grants, because that's what we do, right? We write grants. So I got a grant to change, it's not doing it, to change the signs. So when you come out to the museum, we have galleries like this, well, not as beautiful and gorgeous as this, but we have galleries inside. But what's important is we're on an ancestral site. So we want people to walk out and see the Vaki. We have a ball court, get to understand the site. And we have signs along that walkway. And all of the signs were very historical, very archaeological, and didn't really communicate what we wanted. So we got some funding. We hired an ethno-historian who actually used to work here, work at Greg. So he knew all the elders and he knew who to talk to. And this was the first go-around of, okay, insufficient representation of O'odham and ancestral O'odham, right? Overemphasis of the archaeology. Makes sense? And needs for greater inclusion of O'odham voices. So that's the work that he did for us. And this is one of the new signs that's out there, okay? Where we're using O'odham terms, we're talking about O'odham stories, okay? Okay, the philosophy used is a new perspective introduced, including the terminology, right, that better reflects tribal perspectives, cultural sensitivity, providing a greater worldview. And what we found when he's doing this work, and we were consulting, because of course we did tribal consultation with the Salt River, Pima America, the Indian community, and the Gila River Indian community, was that the archaeology, the science and knowledge that came from the archaeology is not necessarily in competition with the knowledge, the indigenous knowledge. They actually complement each other when you look at them very carefully and very closely, right? So we really felt that we could do a much better job of integrating both of those to support the O'odham perspective. So that's what we came up with. Please know that all of these signs went through consultation at least 3 times. We added a sign. One of the things that came out of consultation was we have 28 signs on that trail, and they didn't want us to add any signs. They just wanted it to be what we had. But we did add one because we needed to get this across to our visitors. Remember, most of our visitors are from out of state, right? So we wanted to really explain the terminology that they would see in the signs when they went outside, right? So when do we use O'odham? When do we use ancestral O'odham? What does that mean? And then the Vaki being the platform mound, the archaeologists call it the platform mound, right? But the ceremonial house of the Vaki. So this sign is in our lobby, and it's on each side of when you access the outside trail. So hopefully everyone is getting this message. I can't guarantee it, because you know how much that people don't read signs a lot, so we know that, but we try. And then we did eliminate a couple of signs, and we replaced them with bright ancient hats. So again, you can access the trail in 2 spots. One had a special place sign, and one had the O'odham Urban Center. This was very inappropriate. We took those down, and this is what Elder Barnaby Lewis shared with us, that we could use this. Okay. We also, oops, lost it. Also tried to incorporate O'odham artists into signs that made sense, that needed some, I'm trying to find a picture to show you guys what I was thinking. So we did contract with, this is Jacob Butler, those of you all who know Jacob, for this sign. You guys can take it, pass it around. Yeah. He did a couple of the signs for us. Did this one, he did the O'odham worldview. So we wanted to make sure we also incorporated O'odham artists as best we could, right? So that project actually took 2 rounds of funding and took us about 3 years to get through. But it's all installed, it's all done, right? So now the problem is, what's inside doesn't match what's outside. So I need to redo our gallery space. That costs way more money. But we started trying to do what we could. And based on some other work that was going on, one of the first things we did inside was to add the Homeland Band. Now this was created by another entity, but we asked if we could use it and make it work in different spaces. So basically the template is the same, and then if you're at Sudavaki, previously Pueblo Grande, this is an old picture, then this piece and the interpretation up there would be specific to Sudavaki. At another location, we would highlight that location, and then the interpretation would be for that location. So this sign right now, or different versions of it are, we have 2 in South Mountain, 1 in Payastawa Peak. There's 1 at a location in Tempe, which I'm not sure where that is, and then at our location. And this is so that our visitors can understand that this community has been here since time immemorial. You have names for all of these places. This is your homeland, right? So, and there's a little explanation down here which is cut off, sorry. So we got this, I believe, installed in 2022 with my notes. All right? Yep. So all of this is going on, and then I have this awful city bureaucracy I have to deal with because I'm city. And so our governing board is called the Parks Board. The Parks Board actually came to us and said, we'd like to do a land acknowledgement. Everyone was wanting to do land acknowledgements at this point. We said, okay. So we do consultation monthly. In fact, our consultation's tomorrow. So we went to consultation and said, hey, the Parks Department wants to do a land acknowledgement. And they said, well, we don't want anyone else to write it, we want to write it. So they wrote it, and took it back. And they said, okay, and then went up all the steps. And then the Parks Board approved it. And so we put the land acknowledgement up on the wall by the homeland map, right? That went up about the same time. I think we installed those at the same time. So there's the map, and there's the land acknowledgement, right? And the land acknowledgement says at the bottom, the department has preserved and continues to shepherd the ancestral sites and is committed to honor the vital meaning of these places, right? So part of what the problem with land acknowledgements is that people do it, stick it up, and then don't do anything else, right? So we are committed to doing something else, right? It's not just putting it on the wall. So this happened, and I went, you know what? The Parks Board and the people who have to decide what happens at the museum, so they seem to be open because they came to us on this. So I'm like, maybe we can ask them if we can change the name of the museum. So I did. And they said, What? Okay. What's wrong with it? Oh, it's not right. So, went to consultation and said, all right, you changed the name of the museum, what would you want to call it? So, they worked together, and the elders got a list, made a decision, and so the name was chosen by the Solomon groups. Okay? And they chose Sirivaki.
Amaya